We looked at blockchain yesterday from a sort of generalist point of view, and we're delighted to have three very different companies who are applying it now in three different ways, each targeting different ones. First up on stage wins the prize. Aiham, founder of Click Aviation, and he's looking at using blockchain for infrastructure. They've already launched a permit program and now looking at maintenance. Sitting direct, wherever you like, Alex. We're all moving up. Sitting next to me is Alex Tai. Alex, the Chief Operating Officer for Virgin Galactic, and also chair of the Commercial Spaceflight Foundation. And he's looking at using a blockchain for imaging, basically. We'll come into it. And finally, we've got James Dunthorne on the right. And James is heavily involved in the drone space and is looking at using blockchain for unmanned vehicles. Right, let's start with nice, easy questions. James, what's your background? How have you ended up in this market?
Academically, my doctorate degree is based in safety and verification for drones. I moved out of that into the drone space, looking at agricultural surveying and construction problems. But probably about a year and a half ago, sort of blockchain was becoming quite prolific, quite sort of large in this area, and there was some people sort of mentioning it. And UTM was also sort of gaining pace. So if you don't know what UTM is, it's unmanned traffic management, which has kind of recently been rebranded as unified traffic management to try and incorporate ATM, UAM, and all of these other new systems. And it kind of just, there was a bit of a light bulb moment over Christmas, and that kind of sort of worked out that blockchain and other DLT technology was sort of good for this space. So that's really how I got into it.
My name is Aiham Badr. I founded Click Aviation Network, which is a company working in the aviation service industry. Just to give you like a brief about this one, this company who's providing the services such as permits, flight planning, ground handling, fueling, hotel, transportation for the general aviation operation. So in 2014, I started Click Aviation, and I wanted to build something where we have a transparent and smart group for the companies to work in. And I found that the best is to build a network. So with the network, we have the transparency, and this led us to start with the blockchain technology. At the same time, we wanted to have like a smart network, and this is why we started as well with the artificial intelligence. So at the moment, we started a few projects with the blockchain, and I'm going to talk briefly about it. In this panel, I would like to introduce the blockchain strategy framework, and we talk about the structure. And then I will give briefly a few advices for the companies who's willing to start with the blockchain implementation. And then I will talk also briefly about two projects we already finalized. And then the rest I will leave it to Alex.
Hello, thank you for inviting me along. I've done some really fun stuff. I've had a pretty blessed career, 20 years in the Virgin Group, getting involved with projects like Virgin Galactic, where I was given a lot of money to go and build spaceships. Getting involved with a group of people like Elon Musk and Paul Allen and Jeff Bezos, who are members of my federation, the Commercial Spaceflight Federation, and they have oodles of cash, and they all want to go to space, and it was all really cool. We learned a huge amount as we were going through this process of trying to commercialize space, and I remember standing on a stage not too far from here in London in 2004 and saying, we'll be in space in 2007. So in December 13th last year, I stood next to Richard Branson and we made it to space. But we were a long way late. In fact, one of our investors is stood here, and he put a few $100 million into into following this particular dream. The fact is, this stuff is really difficult. Aviation, space, trying to make money, trying to start a business. If it's a new industry, blockchain, if it's, space has been out there an awful long time. Aviation has been around just only for a few, there's like 100 years. When we started Galactic in 2004, we'd only previously, the previous year, celebrated the first 100th anniversary. So we've done a huge amount. What I would say about all the guys here, and I think one of the main themes here today and for the last few days has been eVTOL. I really believe it's going to happen. I really believe that there is the capability and the inquiring minds and our dreams to make these things succeed will make it happen. But it's going to be really, really tough. And the incremental approach that people have talked about, some of the investors here, and working with people that already know what they're doing in this space. So whether that's the large OEMs, the aircraft manufacturers who already know how to build something which is certified, working with people that also know how to make things at scale. I'll take a segue, for example. So now I'm working with a blockchain company out on the west coast of the States. We're building 25 pan-industry platforms in blockchain. What we know is that blockchain, you don't need to put blockchain to everything. Everyone thinks like, there might be an anathema. There's this new industrial revolution coming with blockchain, which is going to apply. It doesn't apply to everything. Some things you just do not need to put into blockchain. Also, we're putting together the tools and the basics for blockchain right now. So there's a thing called a protocol layer, which is right at the bottom, and it's basically how you tokenize something. And different protocols are applicable to different use cases. We have a use case that we were looking at, we've been looking at very carefully in the transportation industry, and specifically for the decentralization making an open marketplace and the decentralization of Uber. So you imagine Uber has created an $80 billion business, and what it did is it tried to capture some value that hadn't been tapped before. People's cars that were sitting there on their drives, they're not being used. This is value that wasn't being plowed. You use your car probably 2 or 3% of the time. Ridiculous. So why not give you the capability to someone to go and use their car, and if they've got some spare time, and then go and provide a lift for someone else. That's the value, basically, that was captured by Uber. You can expand on that by decentralizing it. Because although Uber's got a very big pool, it's got a pool of the drivers that are connected to Uber. Lyft have also a pool of drivers, and sometimes if you go to San Francisco, the guy will pitch up from your Uber app, and he's actually got a Lyft sign, and he's working both of them. Decentralization would mean that what we do is we provide a marketplace in blockchain, utilizing the advantages of blockchain in this distributed ledger technology. And forget about the magic. You don't have to understand how your email works. You just need to know that the email gets to where you're getting it to. What happens with a decentralized marketplace is now anyone that wants to put their car onto the market and the driver is there. And it doesn't need to be Uber, and it doesn't need to be Lyft, and you don't need to pay 20% or 30% to Uber and Lyft. You can pay either less for your Lyft or your ride somewhere, or you can take more of the money if you're the driver. And smart contracting will allow you to also have micropayments for insurance. We'll be able to provide possibly powering systems for it. That's what blockchain will do for decentralization of transportation. You could apply that to aviation. So imagine a situation in the future where what you do is you just put all of the tickets that are available to go between New York onto a tokenized system. And someone comes up, and you don't necessarily need to own that. What you're going to do is you want to approach the people that own those tickets, or if you're the people that own those tickets, you can tokenize them. And then you can have a secondary market in those at the same time. We're doing this in the ticketing industry for one of the big frictions. You need to look for frictions in markets. And one of the things that there are in blockchains is that we can reduce some of those frictions, whether that's the margin that a third party is taking by reducing that, or that there is a friction that a rights holder has that you want to get around. If you're Chelsea Football Club and you want to sell your tickets, but you want to avoid a scalper standing outside and making more money for that, maybe if you put all your tickets into a blockchain and you make sure that you have a percentage of every ongoing ticket transaction, that's again a smart way of using blockchain. These are the sorts of things beyond provenance, beyond looking at the value chain of all your supply that blockchain can apply to here in the aviation industry. Possibly in the future, if we have an eVTOL market where you can provide the capabilities and unlock all the possible rides with a blockchain market which is decentralized, maybe that's a fantastic market for the future. But what you need to do is, first of all, find the eVTOL, which is going to lead the market. And one piece of advice there, I think, is probably a fast follower, which is going to win in this industry, not the early entrants. The early entrants, when we backed the X Prize winner for Virgin Galactic, Paul Allen had spent $27 million building the vehicle to win a $10 million prize. There were over 100 companies trying to win that prize, and each of them had spent somewhere between $5 million and $50 million trying to win a $10 million prize. So we followed and we backed the one that won it. Now, we spent an awful lot of money getting to the period we were in December 13th, getting that done. I think there are a lot of entrants already in the eVTOL market, and I would probably bet that one of those is going to be a winner. And then what you should probably do is your investment should be going along to someone that follows that and then builds on the lessons that have been learned from them.
Okay, so Aiham, what friction points are you trying to solve with your product?
Yeah. Actually, in 2018, I acquired CharterPad for one reason. When I started the Click Aviation, always we were talking about the word instant when we talk about the services. The project I started with the blockchain, the name is Permit and Instant Permit Program, which is when you fly from location to location, you need the overfly and the landing permit. So and I studied the blockchain, how we can use it to solve this problem. And then we started to work on the technology to build like the civil aviation module where they can use it. And we have the experience in the permit. So we studied why don't we get the permit instantly? Why, if I'm having, for example, a short notice flight, why I need 3 days or 4 days or 5 days to get the permit? If I have all the certificate, if I have all the requirements ready, so why don't I get it instantly? And this is why we started. Our target is to have instant availability for the aircraft. So we have like plenty of aircraft listed now with CharterPad, but the instant availability is very important when we have a short notice flight, but at the same time, we have to have the instant capability to operate. So if I'm flying from location to location, and I'm looking for the aircraft to operate this, and it needs 3 days to get the permit, then it's not instant availability. So we believe that the instant availability for the aircraft is the physical availability plus the possibility to get all the services instantly. So with the Instant Permit Program, we have all the certificate, we have all the details of the aircraft, the operator, we have all the requirements from the civil aviation, we have the smart contract. So once it's like matching with all the requirements, then you get the permit instantly. Of course, we didn't cover all the civil aviation, but we are working on it. This is one of the projects we are working on. We work already and we are ongoing. And the other one quickly is, I started something, we call it Trust. It's a payment platform, also built on the blockchain, with a token. I name it Chromo. I got the name from the chromosome. So with the Chromo and Trust, you can use it to do the payment instantly, not only for the charter, but also to pay for all the services. So I'm operator using Omega platform, the one we have it in Click Aviation. So in one click, I can get the best price of the fuel, and I can get how much it's gonna cost me for the navigation, for the handling, and I pay it instantly by using Chromo. So this is the two projects I wanted to talk to.
Your first one's interesting because permits are really hard to get. It's a headache for so many people, and there's so many people, you have to call up, and you have to. It seems like you're tackling one where you already got a really hard, and regulatory authorities aren't that quick at moving their fence to Simon. Moving and adapting. Other regulatory authorities aren't so quick. It seems an interesting one to go straight in for a really hard problem.
Yeah, actually, what I advise the companies is if you are going to implement a blockchain, before that, we have to understand what is the blockchain. And as Alex said, it doesn't fit everything. So, and the best way is to start from within. So every project we have in Click Aviation, immediately we start to build a group. We have a Click Matrix, we have a Click Smart, we have a few groups. So the best is to have a group of people from your company who understand your business, who understand what is your vision and the target and the plan. And then you give them a proper training about blockchain. Then you will have the engine inside your company who understand the blockchain and understand as well the business. So then they will decide if your business model fit in the blockchain. And this is why you have to choose something, of course, from your business. At the same time, my second advice is choose always, or pick out from all the problems you have, pick out only one problem and small problem and start with it. So do not go, for example, in our case, we cannot go and solve everything and we say, okay, we are going to build, for example, a project on a blockchain to solve everything about the services. Then this is I can say it's very difficult. But I said, I will start with the permit, and I'm going to solve this one, and we are going to help the operators and the charter brokers to bridge this gap, So, and from my point of view is the blockchain is not a trend to follow. It's a need. If I need it, okay, I have to do it. If not, it's okay. So I have other solution.
So Aiham's going to pick a simple problem. James, UAM is not a simple problem.
Well, I think there's enough problems with... is this working?
Doesn't seem to grab it.
So UAM is a big problem in its own right. I think you've probably got about 5 or 6 different problems you're trying to solve at the same time. But with people call it blockchain, but really what we're talking about is DLT. A lot of people have heard of blockchain, mainly because of Bitcoin. But there's other types of technology out there called direct acyclic graphs, or DAGs for short, which are actually a lot faster and more secure. So I think people generally use the term blockchain for the reasons that's what they know it as, but really what we're talking about is DLT. Now, when you're trying to decide whether DLT is the right solution...
DLT is distributed ledger.
Distributed ledger technology. So we're talking about distributed systems here. So when you're trying to work out whether you should apply DLT to your project, the number one questions you should ask yourself is to do with trust. Trust is the fundamental basis for DLT. And if you can trust a central authority to deal with your problem, then use a database. Don't worry about using blockchain or DLT. What DLT is there for is where you've got multiple different stakeholders all trying to share information or transact with each other in some way, but they don't trust each other. They trust the majority of the network, but they don't trust any individual to be telling them the right information or changing information once a certain event comes to light. So a great example is with asset tracking. You can actually track that through the network, and you might not trust any one individual company to see where that part is going, but as a whole, you trust most of the companies. So that's one sort of side of it. But trust can also come in the form of things like cybersecurity. So do you trust one central authority to be able to deal with the security of your network? Now, that could be, for instance, a very safety critical application that you might be looking at, and you don't want all of your data and all of your resources being held on one single central database. You're trying to distribute that, so you've actually got almost like a self-healing mesh network, and that's where you've got the other sort of side of it. But fundamentally, it's down to trust. So what we looked at was UAM, UTM, ATM. We've got a situation at the moment where you've got multiple different stakeholders all trying to share information with each other. And traditionally, this has been sort of very much a public sector kind of approach with someone like NATS handling this kind of sort of information for ATM. But if we're going to go and get sort of the next generation of innovation in this industry and bringing in things like UTM, UAM, and all of these other aspects, then we need an element of privatization here. And so what we feel is by creating a mesh network between all of the different stakeholders and having them share information with each other, that essentially we can, first of all, provide security to air traffic management, we can provide resilience to it, and we can also provide essentially like an open marketplace for, first of all, data and services where you can create autonomy, and you can create autonomy in a safe and transparent way. And that's really what we're trying to do with it, is all about UTM and unifying traffic management. One of the applications we're looking at the moment, I'm sure we're all quite well aware of what happened at Gatwick in December, but I'm not sure whether as many of you are aware about the fact that it was actually the police force's drone that was actually caused a lot of the problems there. They heard that there was a drone around, so the police put up their own drone, and one of the police constables actually said that they believe that their own drone caused a bigger knock-on effect afterwards than maybe the original drone did.
Does it not have a blue light?
Unfortunately not, no. But that could be an easier solution than using DLT, though, potentially. But where we could apply that is that the problem stemmed from there is actually it's a data problem. Why do air traffic control not know where the police's drone is? And what we can do, one of the areas which we're looking at applying it to is basically linking up airports, NATS, the police, and also counter UAS solutions, and bringing the data that's coming into them all onto a single map. So you've got the likes of Altitude Angel, who are a great young British company who are providing UTM solutions. And we're hoping to work with them and all of these other entities to essentially create this centralized but decentralized sort of approach to handling data in these environments. And with the costs of that problem, just having an approach where all of these stakeholders know what each other are doing and know where aircraft are at any one point in time could have saved sort of tens of millions of pounds just on that one incident. So we see that there's a great opportunity here to be solved.
If I can just add to that, I think James is really onto something with this. It should be pointed out that blockchains and protocols can be either open chains or closed chains. So an open chain would be an example for putting lots of tickets or lots of tokens for flights or tickets on flights onto something so that the whole marketplace is then open. A closed chain might be used where you only want to have trusted parties inside a system for a traffic management system. Now, some of the panelists over the last few days have said one of the air traffic control of these possibly thousands or hundreds of thousands of vehicles now flying is going to be a real issue. I think a blockchain use case and the capability for smart contracting and artificial intelligence and machine learning to govern this space and an architecture for that is something that blockchain could be applied to very, very well. So I would laud James's direction and what he's doing. It is difficult, but it's one of the more difficult problems in a future for eVTOLs, management of traffic.
But you've worked in roles with regulators. Do you see this being adapted anytime soon?
What happens is industry has to go to the regulators and say what it needs to be done. So when we started Virgin Galactic, we wanted to start Virgin Galactic here in the UK, okay? But we were unable to affect change from the regulator. What we did is we lobbied, and the industry lobbied the American government, and we had President Bush at the time sign into law a thing called the 2004 Commercial Space Launch Amendments Act, which allowed you to sell a ticket to space based on how dangerous that was to get done, informed consent. So, you know, the space shuttle, it went to space about 140 times, okay? It had 2 catastrophic disasters. Would I go to space on a space shuttle? Yes. I can do the math, 1 in 70. I probably wouldn't go 70 times. That allowed me to sell a ticket on the space shuttle as long as I told that person, no, here it's going to cost you $30 million to go to space, but there's a 1 in 70 chance of you not coming back. Therefore, the FAA allowed that. And what they did is they directed the Secretary of Transportation to direct the FAA to facilitate commercial space. So the FAA actually set up a commercial space office that took all regulation on board for themselves. Now, it's probably going to be required to do something like industry needs to say, look, this is a solution, and we, the people that make these things, we, the people that are going to operate these things, require this regulation to make this happen. Because the investors, you know, my boss at the time, Richard Branson, his investment committee would not allow me to go and build those spaceships until he knew that there was a regulatory environment which allowed me to get to a position where I could charge money for it. Otherwise, the investment case is dead. You know, so the regulator is important, but you need to inform the regulator, and the regulator will work with you, but you need to have an industry body that goes to them and says, look, this is what we, the industry, believe needs to happen. This is happening in blockchain right now. I think today, it's being announced, I've become a director of the Global Blockchain Business Council. My CEO, Sandra Rowe, is here somewhere, and that's one of the main things that she'll be doing. She's working, putting blockchain and blockchain use cases into the financial field. It's one of the most obvious places to use blockchain. But what that requires is the regulator to work with the industry to work out what the best regulations are to put into place. Blockchain at the moment, people are spending possibly 50% of their investment dollars working out the regulatory way to go to. That's not the right use of the investment dollars. That's not what a VC wants to have, is 50% of his cash spent on working out what the regulation should be. It's the same thing here in VTOL.
James, you're an air traffic expert, I can tell, because you use a lot of acronyms. Sorry.
I'm not sure whether expert is the right term, but I know a little bit about it. So it's quite an interesting question here, actually, which is sort of making the assumption that all blockchains or DLTs are open source. That's not the case. We're actually using an algorithm which was developed in the States by a professor of, I think, about 3 different universities. But you get 2 different types. You get public chains or public ledgers, and you get permission ledgers. A public ledger is something where anyone, you don't need any permission, can set up and run a node themselves. So they can install the software on their computer, and they can be part of that consensus problem. You can also have a permissioned ledger, which is what we're using. It's actually a patented algorithm, not by us, unfortunately, but it you essentially have to have permission to join the network. So you can't just download the software and take part in it. So what this allows you to do is to help prevent Sybil attacks. And a Sybil attack is something where you're essentially just creating loads and loads of users and loads of fake accounts, essentially. So you actually have some control over, firstly, who can join the network, but then also you get to control what permissions they have in respect to data. So some nodes may have access to, as an example, certain types of data, and others, someone like the CIA will probably have access to everything, whereas someone who's an aircraft operator may only have access to other types of data. So you can set these permissions within the software. But in terms of certifying these systems, where we've started is we think that, that there's a particular type of consensus algorithm which is called which is ABFT, which stands for asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerant, and it's a level of security. Sorry to get too deep into the tech, but it's really important that the algorithm that you're using has actually had formal maths proofs behind it. And there's a lot out there, a lot of things like Bitcoin and things. They've got some level of proof behind it, but not actual real mathematical proofs with theorems and lemmas and all the rest of it. And that's a fundamental starting point. Once you've got that, you can actually then build on top of that and start looking at certification side of things. So I think get the fundamentals right, and I think that, yes, it's going to be difficult, but one, they're not open sourced. It can be permissioned, so you have more control over it. And secondly, start off with something that has some kind of formal maths proofs behind it.
Okay,
Can I add something on
quick
this
question
one?
for you as well, actually. No, for you, quick question for you.
Yeah, but before, just very quick on that point, even if it's like air traffic control or system, it's airport, any organization, when you think about the blockchain, it's a technology. I don't see anything with the different from any other technology when we talk about the safety. So, and we have to ask ourselves a few questions. For example, when we talk about the air traffic, so and we talk about the process and the transaction, we have to ask: is it predictable, repeatable process? Can be that can be benefit from being automated, and this is the case. Are there multiple stakeholders participating in a process or a transaction? This is the case. Is there element of value transfer? Yes, because value, I'm not talking about money, value here like the data. Is there a need for immutability that could be easily audited, verified, and trusted? And this is the case of the air traffic. So I see the future with the air traffic, implementing probably private blockchain, permissioned, and it will be successful.
So what value of transactions have you put through your products?
I think they are talking here about the trust and the chromo. Actually, the concept is ready, but we didn't launch it. We will launch it in eBay's because it's something linked with the new technology and the upgrade with the charter pad. So we have we upgraded the technology of charter pad, and we are going to launch it in eBay's with the trust and the chromo. Okay,
final question. It's a yes/no answer. And bear in mind that you're now on the Global Blockchain Business Council, so you can't really answer no. Is blockchain the next industrial revolution?
I can't do that with one.
2 words.
You mind?
You can have 2
it's going to be a little bit. Look, there's been apparently 3 industrial revolutions before blockchain. I do think that there is a huge amount of capability within blockchain, but I think it's also the convergence of a number of different technologies. It's blockchain, it's artificial intelligence, and it's machine learning together with a huge amount of compute capability that's out there right now. What is important, if it is the 4th industrial revolution, is that we don't leave the same mark on the planet that we've left with the previous 3, that we try and use this technology to do something for the people and the planet. And that's one of the things that the Global Blockchain Business Council is going to try and do with this. So we have this Earth imaging data set. There's a satellite company that I helped put together 10 years or so ago that's now imaging the Earth every day to a 3-meter resolution, every square meter of the planet. It's the first time that data set's really been available. We're going to put that into the blockchain so that that's going to be immutable, so you can't change it and put fighter jets in it when there weren't fighter jets in it before, or other things that have been played with imagery and with this technology in the past. We're going to use artificial intelligence and machine learning to predict where the trees that were here yesterday aren't here today. We're going to show people where the deforestry is happening. We're going to show people what's happening to the ice caps. We're going to show people what's happening to the coral seas. We're actually going to be able to show and use this technology to see which Rohingyan villages have been destroyed today that were here yesterday, and allow the United Nations to do something about it. So it's one of the use cases for blockchain and the new industrial capabilities with AI and machine learning that we're really interested with the GBBC to be pushing out there. So yes, I think it is an industrial revolution of capability, and we have a responsibility to do something good with it.
That was a really nice and spurring answer, just to get to yes at the end. Right.
And just allow me to answer about this. I answered already, but like between the lines. Actually, we care about the technology, and we are not going to speculate cryptocurrency. Actually, we are developing this technology to have like open environment and to provide better opportunities. So it's not about like having a chromo token and changing and speculating. It will be fixed only to facilitate instant payment.
So are we at the 4th industrial revolution? Is this the 4th industrial? Yes, no?
No. Robots.
See, I knew you would do a binary answer. I like...
Robots will be.
A robot. Good.
For me, everything, like the 5G, the artificial intelligence and the machine learning, the natural language understanding, and plus the IoT. For example, if we talk about the maintenance and the spare part, if we have the tires, which is like the average age, I think something like between 8 to 9 years, if I'm not mistaken. If you like put it in like good condition, save it and store it in a good condition. For example, if you don't turn the tire like every 30 or 40 days, like 45 degrees, then there will be like a change in the form of the tire, or let's say the shape, and then it's like considered like damaged. So if we implement the blockchain technology on this one, what would be the difference? Nothing, okay? Because the person who's going to enter the data, he's going to put the data he wants. But if we have it linked to a robot or a machine who understand, or like IoT, where automatically turn it, and linked to the blockchain, where you can trace the spare part or any item from the OEM and then organization to organization. This is what we call it blockchain. So blockchain with IoT.
Great. Thank you very much. If everyone in the room could go to the app, you can now download tokens, which you can use to get your coffee outside. It's secure. We've spent millions on it. Nothing can go wrong. And thank you very much to our panel. That was great. Thanks. That was really great. Sorry, we should have had longer. Thank you.